Hey everybody, welcome to another short episode of Greatness Glory, where me and Kevin are going to discuss one subject, have casual conversations about it. We wanted to talk about this. Is religion needed for spiritual progress? Can this two be separated? And what is the role of discernment, taking the good out of everything, if it's religion or anything else, and use your discernment not to be a blind follower, but to take what's really constructive, the things that keep you in harmony and wholeness. Let's just start with hearing your opinion, Kevin.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed these podcasts. I think they're very practical, and I enjoy just talking to you on the daily basis and also learning from you. To me, religions have over the years, if you've studied any tradition, they have served certain purposes. They've acted as governments at times. They've been the judicial system. So I have nothing against organized religion, except when it comes to spirituality, I think they're almost in the modern age, they've become two opposing forces. Don't you feel that is the case?
Spirituality and religion, I think sometimes I've seen this in Abrahamic religions mostly. I've been deeply involved in Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, and all of them. And again, I don't have anything against them overall. Also, I just have something against their limited thinking and blind belief where it comes to saying that, okay, if this is written here, it's absolute word of God and you should not question it. You should not even think that, okay, maybe this is modified, maybe you are interpreting it in a wrong way, and all those things, and just like blindly follow them, overall. Yeah, in most religions around the world, there is something actually against the spirituality from leaders of those religions. Like when you go and you study Sufism, you see how many Sufis were actually prosecuted by leaders during the history. And even Jesus in his time was prosecuted. Many other people were prosecuted because mainly spirituality is talking about being independent and experiencing God for yourself. And some religious systems say, no, we show you what God is. And this is the book that shows what God looks like. And you need to follow this book. When Jesus said that me and my heavenly Father are one, or the great Sufi Mansur Hallaj also went through the same thing where he realized the truth exists within everybody. He said, I am God. This is not new. This is something that's been claimed for thousands of years, especially in Hindu Eastern traditions, to say, me and universe, we are one. We are not separate. I am not separate from God. But in some religions, this has been misunderstood by people who don't have the experience of it, the real understanding of it. They said this is like kufr, this is like shirk, whatever they call it. This is against religion to say I am God, but they didn't understand that this means that in a sense, when they say you are created in the image of God, so it means that you have the same essence as God, divinity. So I think everything comes from a misunderstanding, just like Rumi said, the war of 72 nations is just an excuse because they didn't see the truth. They stuck to the myths. They just want to follow the myths.
Where do you see the Middle East as the cradle of Abrahamic religions, like moving towards? Our generation, grew up with technology, and where do you see the trends going of faith, spirituality in Middle East, especially given how much conflict there is? But Jerusalem is sacred to almost every nation and tradition, and I was wondering where, without getting into politics of it, where you see those religions heading towards.
What I think is that the more we become intellectual and we advance in our thinking and in science and knowledge, less people are willing to blindly follow something. If I come and tell you, especially the new generation, you know, this book was written 5,000 years ago. In this book, it says God has two horns. God looks like this. God does this. This is what God has said. Most of them they would say, how do I know this is true? And I think in real spirituality you need to come to your own understanding and experience of things. And if I were to tell you, you know, God is sitting somewhere, he looks like this and he does that, and he asks you to do this, if you don't ask, why do I believe this true? Then I think you are also not using your God given spiritual discernment and intellectual capability to find out. Because if that's true, anybody can come and say, this is the truth. And it's sad you brought up the Middle East also. You see a lot of hatred going on between a lot of, not all of them, but a lot of like Muslims and Jews and so on. And you go to each one, they say our religion is the most complete and true, and the other, especially the other two Abrahamic religions, they are wrong because of this and that. And you go to the second one, they say the same thing. And you go to the third one, say no, the other two are wrong, we are right. But when you really study as a philosopher, as a explorer, and you go into depth of the religions, you see they all talk about the same thing. The problem happens when people don't want to question things and don't want to consider that maybe this thing that is written here, even though maybe its core was pure when it was given at that time, like maybe Islam 1400 years ago and Christianity or Judaism at their time, maybe they were not looking like this. And when you read history, you can clearly see that the original version of those religions looked very different. And then the church, authorities, politics, whatever, modified them. I end by saying people act and think out of fear, thinking if I question this, God is going to punish me and all those things. But for me, the transformation happened when I started studying many religions. Because when you study another religion and another religion and another religion, it actually helps you understand your own religion better. Because you need to study all of them, because maybe not any of them are these days 100% pure. Maybe some of them are 90% pure, some of them are 50% pure. I don't want to judge, but like when you study and then you cross connect things, you say, okay, all of these religions are talking about, for example, there is a truth behind everything. That truth also is within you, and your nature is divine. You are an eternal being. And when you go into all these religions, you see all these things. When you study deeper, you see, okay, some of the things that they said, it doesn't really match with the core of all these religions. It was specifically designed by some religious leader, maybe for people of their time, and maybe for specific purposes. It doesn't mean that it's a universal law that you gotta follow. When we say universal law, something like the law of karma, cause and effect, it's a universal law. It doesn't matter. Karma doesn't care if you are Christian or a Hindu. When you do something which is harmful, it will harm you and others. So this is a universal law. But when it comes to something like, let's say in Judaism, when in the scripture at that time, whether it's correct or not, they say, okay, in Saturday, this Sabbath, it's a sacred day, you don't start fires around your home for whatever reason. But then you interpret this and say, okay, electrical devices, including my smartwatch, also are fire. If I wear a smartwatch on Saturdays, the sacred day, then God will punish me without thinking if really it's what it means. So there's a lot of those misunderstandings. This is what I think, and I hope that with speeding up of knowledge, people will come to a better understanding to understand what is the message, the core of that religion, not the things that are on the surface. Let's end it by this quote from Rumi, a great mystic, who said, I took the core from Quran. It means he took the spiritual message of it, and he says, I took the core from Quran and left a skin for the donkeys, and the donkey is a metaphor for a stupid people, like, not to disrespect anybody, but says you put a watermelon skin in front of a donkey, he eats it joyfully, says this is the best thing. But
Yeah,
what you losing the core, the honey,
yeah,
sweetness within it, that makes you free. It's not the surface, the code of conduct, or this is good, this is bad, the rituals that set you free, but the core message of it, which might take 10, 20 years for one person to really realize the core, but we need to go to the core.
yeah. Thank you. And I've always said I've been a student of theology because I've been interested in many practices and traditions. Is it necessary for somebody to study theology before discovering spirituality? And if no, are there actual practices like daily rituals that you may recommend for a beginner who's interested in spirituality, turning inward as opposed to having a religious practice?
Look, you can say that not for everybody theology is needed, not even believe in God in the usual way, saying there is a deity and whatever. Like when you study Buddhism, for example, in Buddhism, there is no belief of like deities and God, even though in Tibetan Buddhism, deities or some divine beings were added later. But usually in original Buddhism, there is no need for you to believe in any form of God. But there is a concept of inner nature, they call it Buddha nature, where your inner nature is perfect, is pure, it's free from suffering and bondage and so on. That thing exists within everything. So you don't have to believe in a specific God with a specific name and qualities to progress on your spiritual path, unless you want to do it and it has its own place. But when you ask me what is the simplest spiritual practice people can do, everything can actually be a spiritual practice. I say if you spend 1 hour, just go somewhere in nature or go hiking for yourself, and instead of being in your head, try to pay attention to your surrounding environment. Don't think about them. Just look at trees, look at the grass, breathe deeply, pay attention to your feelings. And if it can bring you 5% more of inner tranquility and silence, in that silence, you might learn more about God and spirituality than you reading 1,000 spiritual books.
Thank you. And to me, my spiritual journey started by just lighting candles and just meditating on the flame and trying to connect to it. A lot of what resonates with me in spirituality in the modern day is sort of daily practices that can be very simple, like maybe using some essential oils as you meditate, or doing a sound bath, or like having a lit candle. And sacredness, like what is sacredness, how do we create it in our own home? That is a very different topic than religion, I think. But what do you do in order to invite sacred sort of environment or atmosphere to the peace and tranquility of your own home and environment?
Let's say the sacredness is an attitude and a state of being or an energy that you experience. And a kid, maybe a 5-year-old kid, usually might have the very powerful spiritual experience that the person who spends like 50 years studying all scriptures might not have it. Because after all, truth, spirituality, divinity, divine, Buddha nature, consciousness is here. It's not somewhere else. It's here within your being. Philosophy of yoga, for example, says one way to reach it is to silence your mind. When you silence your mind, you experience the existential truth where God exists, where divine exists for yourself. So everybody gives a different meaning to sacredness. It's experience of something more significant, more intense, deeper. Maybe we can call that sacred. And I think if you look at it from the perspective of the vibration of different states of being, which is explained in different traditions, where you say, okay, I have the vibration of fear, I have the vibration of hate, I have the vibration of revenge, I have jealousy. And then when you go up the ladder, you get to more refined states of being where there is acceptance, surrender, joy, connection to universe, gratitude, and love. And then when you get closer to that state of being or that state of mind, or put it simply, those emotions, those refined emotions, you get closer to what we call God. But this is not the God that most people think that, okay, this God is sitting there, I'm getting closer to it. It's your own nature. The God is within you. The God nature is very, very close to you. You know, in all the scriptures, they have stated this, like in Quran, they said, God is closer to you than the vein on your neck.
Yeah.
And these are metaphors, right? In some other religion, they say God exists in your breath and so
Yes.
on. It's not, there is no perfect way to explain this, and not everybody is ready to hear, "Oh, I am God." No. Even a lot of advanced people cannot still accept it. So
Yeah.
if God is within you, all the things that we do religiously and spiritually, in a way, should be a method to get you closer to that vibration, that state of being, that experience, which you can call God. You don't have to believe in a specific form and shape or name of God, because why do you do that if you can experience God within yourself? And this experience is not something that happens all of a sudden. It's a journey from going from those lower states of being, compulsive states of being, to where you get to a point that when you close your eyes, you feel tranquil and you feel at peace and you feel connected to everything. Maybe that's the very simple way to put the experience of divinity or God. What is the place for religion or specific ways of looking at God in all this?
Thank you for asking that question. To me, I don't judge, because people, depending on where they are, like some people need the law where it tells them how to enter a bathroom, let's say, with your right foot first and left foot. And that's totally fine. I don't judge. And one of my teachers used to say, when ascended masters such as Yeshua, said, I am the way. He was not looking for followers necessarily. He was saying, be like me, because we are all made in image of God, and that, you don't need no temple, no priest, no third parties. It's an inward journey. And that's my definition of spirituality, in that it's an inward journey, and that not everybody is ready for that, and some people may need a structure. My fear in the modern age is, as I work with children as an educator, is that with AI, with technology, the way it's evolving, there's going to be two groups of people. Ones that see AI as something wonderful to merge with, including their consciousness, versus a group of people who think in a more organic way and feel like, well, maybe this technology is here to serve us and evolve, as opposed to us needing to merge with it in order to evolve. And I wanted you to maybe touch a little bit on that philosophy, because a lot of teachers have spoken about these times and what it means, Kali Yoga, and what's your opinion of what's going on currently and why it's important to have conversations like this today.
We talked about some of these aspects when you bring up the I think it all goes back to understanding that spirituality and evolution means being independent and self sufficient. When you look at history and mysticism and so on, you see there are people who have achieved a state, whether they are a Sufi or Yogi or whatever, that they are always happy. They always have a lot of energy. They are always at peace. They always have clarity of the mind. This happened by working on their body, their mind, their energies, the piece of life that exists here, these bodies, let's say, that we experience the life through them, not by an external crutch, because maybe AI and technology will get to a point that we can be always healthy and do many of other things and even be much happier. But after all, if when we talk about the spirituality, if there is a spiritual nature behind things, and I come and tell you, don't worry about it, we can make you live up to 200 years and be happy. Some people will say, okay, why do I bother about everything? I'll just live a happy life and die. But let's bring up something controversial, which is again a belief which cannot be proven or what. If there is a afterlife in some way, whether it's reincarnation or you going to a different dimension, and if it's true that we are born multiple times till we evolve, till we learn to connect to our divine nature, then maybe that's, from the perspective of looking at society, is a good thing, when you, for example, go and watch that movie, I don't remember the name, where the governments come up with a drug, they give everybody, nobody gets angry anymore, like everybody is like a mental balanced state, but then it will also limit you, because then the nature of duality of this world where we are born into it is to experience duality and to uh, strive to go beyond our limitations,
Yeah.
to experience good and bad, light and shadow, and through those up and downs and through those emotions, through those states, even through suffering, we learn to evolve. If the purpose of universe was to put us here, that we can just enjoy and be happy and peaceful by some external measures, let's say using a medicine or drug or something, I think universe would do that itself. Universe would create us in a way that we are like eternal in terms of body, or we wouldn't have room to experience pain and suffering and different emotions. But this is my opinion, that this is like a childish attempt to say, okay, if we make this material life more perfect, then we don't need a spiritual experience. You're missing a lot of your being here, because you have other aspects, and this aspect, unless you go and look for it and experience it and study about it, it won't have any meaning to you, especially if you are a starter on a spiritual journey. Because why would you want to believe me if I say, okay, you have a soul, try to connect to it? But if you study for yourself and then you see, and especially if you had the time and passion to do it, like me, study 10, 20, 30 different spiritual traditions and see they're all talking about one aspect of our existence, which can be experienced, and it's a aspect that is already perfect, spotless, pure. It's beyond the limitations, it's beyond the suffering. And then from that understanding, maybe you can pick a path to strive to get closer to that aspect of yourself where you are free from suffering, where you are content, where you don't need to seek anything or experience external things such as pleasures or comfort or things to be happy. And let's end this session by saying this. There's a Sufi poem which says, what is the difference of happiness and sadness for a Sufi? It means when you have connected to the ocean of bliss, ocean of perfection within yourself, then where is the room for you seeking small pleasures or trying to use desperate measures to feel happy? If everything is within you, if the happiness is within you, why do you go and seek something external as an indirect way to trigger those pleasures, let's say, or happiness, joy within yourself? There is a Vedantic story. There was a dog sitting somewhere. He was chewing on a bone that was given to the dog. And every day he was chewing on the bone, and this bone would go into his gums and make the gums bleed. And the dog would taste the blood and say, wow, this is such a tasty bone. And then they give this example to explain all the pleasures are within you. I mean, if you even look at it scientifically in terms of neuroscience, if I achieve something, my brain gives out some dopamine or something, it makes me feel good. If I feel secure, my body generates certain hormones or oxytocin or whatever to make me feel good at peace. And if you even use a drug or something, it triggers something within you to experience those things. And this is where art of balance comes in. If you create the perfect balance within yourself, and if you become less attached to external pleasures as a desperate means to become happy, then you see, I can get to a point, I can get to a state within myself that just by closing my eyes, I can experience a peace, a pleasure, a state that is ultimately even beyond all those things. It's not that small bone that you chew on and you say, okay, I smoked this cigarette and it gave me some pleasure, but the pleasure was within you. It doesn't come from the cigarette, or it doesn't come from sex, or it doesn't come from having more money. You're using those things as an external measure to trigger what's within you. And the key to get direct access to that is inner tranquility, silence. The more you meditate and then the more you're still, you see it's already within you. That's why even when I was younger and I used to hang out with some of my friends, I was like, what's wrong with you? You don't want to drink, you don't want to smoke, something's wrong with you, dude. Like, I don't need it. I'm like, I'm happy the way that I am. If I go and sit and look at a tree, if I just bring my attention to my breathing, I experience it. And I think you, as a spiritual seeker, and I'm saying this to people, you need to decide if there is such a thing that the source of all joy is within you, all peace is within you. Doesn't it make sense for you to go and study about it and learn about it and see what great teachers, spiritual teachers, philosophers, or whatever said about this thing? And maybe you can try some of those methods for a while in the right way, maybe finding a good teacher and practicing them. And then only at that time you can decide for yourself if this is all BS or if there is something to it. So again, everything goes back to your own personal experience.
Thank you. Beautifully put. I It does not need to be anything added to that.
Okay,
Nothing needs to be added to that.
great. We wanted to keep these episodes short. So let's end it here and then we will continue on another episode. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you.